the person you grow to become. As they hoisted George into the back of the ambulance, the 19-year-old artist couldn't help but wonder what images might crowd their way into his final moments. What exactly might a man recall from his childhood if he never had a childhood in the first place? Eyes shut, siren wailing above his head, George sees himself at the piano, sitting beside his beloved mother. He's 7 years old, receiving his first piano lesson. He's intrigued but distracted, partly because his friends are outside playing stickball, and partly because he's already figured out the piano. The relationship of one note to another, chromatic, diatonic, chord progression, harmonies, rhythms, time signature, each key and its attendant tone make immediate and perfect sense to his brain. Whatever his mother plays, George plays it right back, flawlessly. Now he's sitting at a grand piano somewhere. He's playing Chopin, an etude. He plays from memory. The crowd applauds. His mother weeps. From the back of the ambulance, George can see it all in his mind's eye, like it was yesterday. In the passenger seat, a beautiful woman turns to look back at George, prone and motionless on the gurney, her lovely face a mask of stress and worry. "Hurry," she says to the driver. "For the love of God, hurry!" The driver's knuckles are white on the steering wheel. Crosstown traffic is a nightmare. The snow is coming down thick and heavy. He swerves onto the sidewalk, scattering tourists and locals, and races towards another gridlocked intersection. In the back, George is oblivious. In his mind's eye, he's now standing before a blank canvas. He can once again hear the sounds of children at play. He holds the brush with a natural ease and attacks the canvas with fluid, confident strokes, deftly combining colors and using light in ways that simply can't be taught. The result is identical to the Monet he has chosen to imitate. George is 8. Like photos in an album, George sees his youth flying by. He's standing by his mother's casket, heartbroken and devastated. He is 9 and vows to never play the piano or paint again. But the artist inside can't be contained. He auditions for a school play and gets the lead, and then another, and then another after that. He memorizes his lines as he reads them for the first time. His teachers have never seen the like of him. Now, George is with his father, a man so desperate to escape his own reality, he flees Wisconsin with his son, taking the boy away from everything he knows. They move to the Far East. There is no stickball. There are no friends. But George learns a new language, and then another after that. He charms everyone he meets, but he meets no one his age. He's 11. Up front, the driver turns to the passenger beside him. "I don't think we're going to make it." The elegant woman chews her nails. "Oh, we're going to make it, or you're going to live with the consequences. Now drive, damn it. Drive." Outside, the snow is falling harder than ever. The ambulance and those in it are like figures in a snow globe, trapped in a scene they can neither control nor change. Back in the childhood George never had, the headmaster at Todd Seminary wants to know if he would like to run the theater department. Would he like to produce some short films? Why, yes. Yes, he would. And so he does, at the tender age of 12. More recollections fly by faster and faster, but the life flashing before his eyes is not the life of a child. There's no stickball, no cowboys and Indians, no sledding with his friends down the big hill in Wisconsin. But he does see those final moments with his dad. He sees himself threatening to leave forever if his father won't stop drinking. He sees his dad try and fail. George was just getting started. 6 years later, at the impossible age of 25, I'm not really sure which is worse, to have a kid that smart in a mainstream classroom, or to be surrounded by other, right? I mean, it's so difficult to know how to raise a kid like that. He's a better painter than most painters with works in museums, a better composer than most published musicians. There's nothing he couldn't do. So, I mean, the first place to start is with that weird composite of talent. And hopefully you don't just envy him so much that you can't appreciate it. But look, he wasn't a really happy guy, and he wasn't Cecil B. DeMille,
right?
Ultimately. So in spite of all the talent, there was a lifetime of struggle.
It feels like there was a little bit of prankster in him, because all of that talent really thrust him onto the world stage with War of the Worlds, where he sent parts of the United States, scurrying in fear and terror because of his radio play that gave everyone the real impression that aliens had landed and the whole thing. I mean, I think he was still a teenager when he did that.
He was.
Pre going out to Hollywood and Citizen Kane and changing the world and that. And, there's a lot to be said about him. And I want to ask your take on this. Do you think he was largely marginalized? Do you think he was shadow banned, using a modern term?
He picked a fight.
He did pick a fight, and I'm wondering if when, the wealthiest man on earth at the time, William Randolph Hearst, found, this young upstart talent parodying him in Citizen Kane, if that changed the trajectory of his life.
Had to. I mean, it would be like picking a fight today. I don't even know if there is a corollary.
I was about to say, I don't think there is a...
Right. I mean, William Randolph Hearst back in the day controlled by most of the newspapers in the country, a lot of them. And so he waged a war on Wells's film, Citizen Kane. And a lot of other things went back and forth, lots of dirty tricks and so forth. But I'm not an expert on the guy, but I do think he poked the bear, and people loved him for it, but the bear didn't. So, yeah, you can read a lot about that war. It never really ended. I think, though, it's good, too, to start with the hack. Like, we read a lot today about life hacks, I mean, I'm kind of into it right now. I interview a lot of people on my podcast now who have figured out a better way to do a simple thing. Well, getting through crosstown traffic, getting through gridlock, it takes a kind of genius to find a loophole and then to exploit it. And so honestly, that's why I wrote the story. It's like this mad scientist, this brilliant guy, he beat New York crosstown traffic in winter. I mean, having lived in New York for a time, that's a consummation devoutly to be wished.
Do you have concerns about low interest rates and assets that produce little or no income? Are you tired of being blown around by the unpredictable wind?
Thought that the life of Orson Welles was brought to this story at this moment because you thought it was really cool that he hacked the system and used an ambulance to get across town so he could be in a play. I think that's hilarious.
Well, it's genius. And I mean, do you do any life hacks?
I think it says a lot about who you are, that you're,
impressed by that sort of thing?
Yeah.
I'm going through, maybe it's just a phase,
yeah.
But it's like everybody's writing today about shortcuts.
Yeah.
And deep down, I know that shortcuts lead to long delays. I'm suspicious of them. I don't typically take them. But I've been doing these cold plunges and cold showers. I've read a lot about it, and I feel much better after a really cold shower than I do a normal one. It's very uncomfortable when it's happening, but afterwards I feel great. Anyway, I like to think that Orson Welles would have been totally into that whole weird life hacking thing because he was always looking for a better way to get a thing done.
And he was always the best at whatever he did. So he was trying to achieve something, and without picking the wrong fight early in his life, where would this guy have gone?
I wonder. We'll never know, because personally, I don't know that it was Hearst. Hearst was a problem for him, but if he had the temperament and the judgment and the patience in an equal or commensurate supply to his many gifts, he would have run over Hearst. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. He'd be impervious to that kind of thing. But he wasn't like Elon Musk in that way, where you can we're going to go to Mars here. And over here, we're going to build a tunnel factory. And we're going to change everything here and here. And oh yeah, let's save speech. We'll buy Twitter. He's an artist, right? Orson Welles was an artist first and foremost, and because of that, I think there was some other sensitivity or sensibility. There was something about the guy that made him really vulnerable. And in my story, it was the childhood he never had. Is that really true? I don't know. I wasn't there.
And now your host.
Here they come.
Welcome.
I don't know what it means. A little nervous, but go ahead.
If you wind forward into the 1970s, the early 1970s, Orson Welles is now, the gray is feckled in his beard, and he's gray, and he's a little rounder than he was in our story, and he decides to get involved in a production called The Late Great Planet Earth. And so in my office, I have a poster of an Earth. I think it's like on fire or something like that, and it was basically a documentary film that was in theaters based upon Hal Lindsey's Late Great Planet Earth. That was a version of, kind of dispensational theology and eschatology, and a version of eschatology.
And Orson Welles presented that series, narrated it?
He was the on-camera narrator involved in the actual production that went into theaters called The Late Great Planet Earth.
He did so many things. Around that same time, he was selling wine in a box. Ernest Julio Gout, right? We shall sell no wine before it's time. You have to Google him being directed to sell, like, there's a place I know, and some place, Iceland, right? And he was so angry toward the end because you couldn't tell him what to do. He was the potter. The world was the clay.
Oh, my goodness.
And when he found himself in front of people who told him, no, put the light here, or no, say it this way, God help you, right? Who is going to direct Orson Welles? You'd have to be out of your mind, right? But people tried. And look, there's so many stories of the guy. He gets in a fist fight with Ernest Hemingway in a theater after screening one of Hemingway's things that he directed. It's just story after story after story.
My son, Kalen, went to LA Film School, and they had to study Citizen Kane. And one of the things I remember is, in the day that he was creating, this film, Citizen Kane, they had fixed turret lenses. You had kind of like wide shot, rotate the front of the lens to the medium shot or the tight shot. But these things looked like you were moving refrigerators around the studio. You know, today we have these little tiny little cameras that are so mobile and all that. And Orson Welles was so cognizant of how to change perspective, even in that early days, that he had trenches dug into the studio floor so the camera could be lowered to ground level. Right. So that when the camera boomed in, you know, to someone, it was this very majestic low angle shot, and that had never been done before.
Yeah, he didn't make new tech. He used tech in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Which is almost as powerful. But he didn't do as much as I wish he would have. You know, when I look at A Touch of Evil, certainly Citizen Kane, that it was like the promise of so much more to come. Like, and I just can't help but wonder somewhere in all of it,